Welcome to Coffee for Closers. Alex Wellings here yet again. We're talking with Brian Benham today. We're talking about planning your year. At the beginning of every year, we like to do this episode just to stay fresh in everybody's minds on what you need to keep in mind when you're planning your marketing year, your branding year, what you're going to do to accomplish your goals at the end of the year. And there's very few in this business that I've had the pleasure of talking to in my short time in the industry, that do this any better than Brian Benham. So last year we did an episode just like this, talking with Brian about his 2020 year. So maybe we'll recap a little bit of that. But first of all, welcome to the show, Brian. Thanks for being on again. And thanks for sharing some wisdom.
No problem, Alex. And, I think this is my favorite episode every year, talking about, what we did, what we need to do. And hopefully this is the most impactful program that we do every year too.
It tends to be. I mean, this is always one that gets people's their thoughts going. What do they need to do when they jump into the driver's seat at the beginning of the year? We always have this first week of the year where we're not really sure. You haven't done any prospecting for 2 weeks, so that top of the pipeline is real thin. But everybody's trying to get back in the mode, jump back in the driver's seat of their business, and what do they need to do? Who should they talk to? Well, obviously, we always love to say the first person you should chat with are your business partners. Your IMO, FMO being one of the main ones, of course. So, Brian, maybe let's recap your 2020.
Okay.
It's a tumultuous year for the majority of folks out there, but you had one of your best years yet. And I know that was a number of different factors contributing to that. But maybe you could recap us what maybe you started the year thinking you were going to do, where you kind of pivoted, and how you wrapped up the year.
Well, first thing I want to say, you made a comment in passing that a lot of people start the year thin. And man, I hope that's not the case with everybody. And I feel like if you start the year thin, you probably didn't work your plan from last year. One of the things that I always look at, I'm always looking at about a 6-month in the hopper. I'm always looking at how much business do I have in the hopper all the time. And probably the most critical time of the year for us is to never start the year thin. We work extremely hard towards the end of the year so I can start out fresh. And what I always look at from a business standpoint is we obviously have a tax service, and we're getting in gear for our tax service, and that generates revenue. So I know that that's going to generate several months worth of revenue for the business. But I always like to have a 6 or a 9 month amount of business in the hopper to know that if I stop today, how much business have we got that's going to carry us forward and not put any pressure on me. So I don't like to start thin, but I wanted to just touch on that. That is a direct result of what you do or didn't do in the year before. Mm-hmm. And whenever I look back into 2020, Alex, I'm just going to take it and run. That's all right with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Last year, and I'll even go back to 2014, because Alex, this isn't our first, planning event. We've had, I think it was 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, even last year, 20.
Sure.
But I could probably go back and pull every recording. And I can assure you that every recording, I ask the same question. What are you going to do this year that you differently than you did last year? And I know we talked about this last year, Alex, and I think that, the same people that, or the people that do the same thing year after year have the same production amount year after year. Mm-hmm. However, for those people, those producers that do the same thing year after year after year, that's always worked in the past. That's always worked. If let's say you're a $5 million producer and you think, I don't need to change anything, Brian, I don't need to listen to this webinar this year, because I'm going to do the same thing. All I want to do is 5 million. I got news for you, buddy. Last year, you didn't do your 5 million. If you did everything the same way that you've done it year after year after year, because we had COVID. And, last year we had businesses lost. We had families losing jobs. We had people going into bankruptcy. We had all these problems associated with COVID. And frankly, it causes me to think about when I was in high school. When we played basketball, I remember, we had some pretty crummy coaches, but we had some good coaches along the way too. And I remember a coach dating back to my junior high years that would always tell us at the first 5 minutes of the second half, Alex, you probably heard that before.
Oh, yeah.
The first 5 minutes of the second half define the game. Mm. They define the game. And if we didn't come out, bully full forward and working as hard as we could, we got yanked out of the game, because that first 5 minutes were critically important. And I looked to last year, we had 10 weeks
Right.
pre-COVID.
Right.
We had the first 5 minutes. Last year we had it. And those folks that established a plan, that set goals and hit the ground running, not starting thin, but hit the ground running, probably survived better than others. We had carriers last year, Alex. A lot of our carriers reported huge losses in what the production they anticipated. But if you would have hit the ground running because you had a plan and you truly worked the plan, COVID probably, it would have had an impact, I'm sure, over the year.
Sure.
But you probably were still successful. And as far as our production, you mentioned it, and I look back, and fortunately, last year on this show, we talked about what we were going to do. And we were going to up our workshops. We're up our email and mail programs.
Yep.
Those are the two primary things that we talked about. And we did. We came out of the gate and we instantly had several Social Security workshops. We had some federal workshops. We even did some federal workshops for other agents across the country last year early. Mm-hmm. But our personal production out of the gate was high.
Right.
And you mentioned our numbers. We had more production in 2020 than I've had in the last 14 years before I sold my company, where we were doing 60 or 70 million. But as far as individual production in our office, we were 3 times what we were in 2019. 3 times our production, overall production, than we were in 2019.
Yeah.
But it's because the first 10 weeks defined our year.
Yes.
And I guess my question to everybody is, what defined your year? Was it pre-COVID that defined your year, or was it post-COVID that defined your year? And I'm not here to harp and beat up on people, but that's, I think, a good question. What did you do differently in 2020? What did you do coming out of the gate that was going to put you in a different situation? And thankfully and luckily that we came up with a plan, and we addressed the plan, and we worked it hard. And so all through COVID, we were still writing business. Yep. And on top of this, Alex, and I'll give you a second to talk since it's your show, but and on top of that, most of you probably knew I had COVID and I was out of the office for 2 months. Yeah. And during that time, we were still closing business. Yeah. So it didn't slow us down. Now we had a lull around August or September, but we also, during the time when it got over COVID, we're working, we still went back to our plan, and we had to pivot because we couldn't do workshops. We were doing other direct mail campaigns, email campaigns through Megastar, and our business picked back up. And fortunately, I don't know if you knew this, Alex, but December for us was the largest single month in the history of our company.
Well, I'd be lying if I said I didn't see that. We saw it for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's good for us. But go ahead, Alex. I didn't mean to just.
No. You make a lot of very valid points. I mean, there are so many guys out there that they set out on maybe some sort of mission. They got demoralized when things shut down, or they got wrapped up in the thought that until everything goes back to normal, I'm not going to be able to do what I do, and did not want to pivot. And then there were, after a while, because we were all told way back when this was going to be a 2-week shutdown and we're going to get back to normal and things are going to, people did not see this going throughout. I mean, really still going today. They didn't see that. So what we saw as an organization was that lull that happened, obviously during the summer months, you had some sort of a lull, but our lull really started right back when the shutdown started in April, where advisors just kind of accepted the fate for a little bit, decided to just kind of recluse from doing any sort of work. And then, come late, maybe July or early August, they were saying, well, shoot, this doesn't have any end in sight. I got to do something different, and started to wanting to learn then. And we're just starting to find their stride come first part of November, and boom, holidays hit. And so they ended up, having their year defined by post-COVID measures, right? Where things had just kind of fallen apart. They had a good maybe first couple parts of the year, or maybe they were just getting going in the first couple parts of maybe late February, which seems to be everybody's time where they're really starting to find their stride in a normal, maybe let's say 2019 style year. They were just getting going, and then the world got shut down for them. And you pivoted, right? Like, you had a plan that was a pre-COVID plan, but then you pivoted to adapting it to a post-COVID world. And I think what I really wanted to maybe hone in on is not exactly what you did, and we could get into that too if we wanted to, but primarily how you're able to just accept and move forward so easily, where others just seem to kind of dwell or make the wrong decisions. Do you consult with folks at those times? I mean, what is it that you do that allows you to pivot so well? Because I remember in 2019 you had to pivot too, where some of the marketing stuff we were doing wasn't working, and you pivoted then to something different, and then you pivoted again right then in 2020 come COVID time. And yes, I do remember you had the virus, unfortunately, but right when you got back from the virus, you were back on their horse and riding. Maybe talk to us a little bit about your ability to pivot and where that comes from, and how you make decisions on how you're going to pivot.
Well, you know, the other coach says the same things to their people, that the first 5 minutes is as critical to them as well. So when you come out, you don't know what the next 5 minutes is going to be like. You've just got to go at it gangbusters. And so, yeah. You know, what we do isn't easy. You've got to be willing to work and work hard. And as far as what we did to pivot last year, we saw quickly that, you know, the on-site workshops, we couldn't even find a location to hold an event last year. So right. We had to do something differently. We did harvest our database some last year, more than probably ever before. That's still untapped. A part of it's still untapped, and we're working on that for this year. So we pivoted in that manner. And Megastar did such a great job and is doing such a great job on some of their lead programs, their email programs. And we used a lot of that, where I didn't really anticipate that we would need to use that service as much, but we did, and we benefited from that. And then another thing we were able to do, since we've done this for several years, is we've gone back in time. Whenever I talk about harvesting our database, we welcomed the virtual world.
Yeah.
And we had I think Coffee for Closers, and we had a session on this last summer about, you know, the importance of accepting that you're going to have to do some business over the internet through the computer. And we did close several $1 million worth of business, you know, basically over the telephone or virtually through the computer. And so we understood that, and we adapted that a lot. And then we're going to carry that along into this year as well. We're going to be doing a lot of that more and more. I'm still a yellow pad guy. You know, I still love to be able to meet face to face with as many people as I can. But we're also doing some other things this year that I think are things we've talked about, but more of a goal, from a goal perspective. You know, a lot of you have seen the referral system we use is simply about a 7 or 8 page report. I should have shown this, but it's an 8-page report of the retirement report analysis that we use. I think most of you have seen this. You know, you've probably seen some of these graphs.
Sure. Yeah, the track report. Yep.
And I'll share this with everybody, because we went in and we actually highlighted certain areas to explain what this sample report is. You know, hey, this page explains the 6 different year values of your retirement, should you want to delay. This page, you know, details your future income. We tried to make the report simple, and we compressed it from a 30-page report to about 7 or 8 pages, 9 pages. And we have a goal to give away 1,000 of those this year as sample reports. And I think, you know, on our sample cover page, it doesn't just say sample, it says sample for, and we actually ask our clients, our prospects, or our clients, to give a sample report to a couple of people that they know could use our services. Now, we talked about that before.
Yeah.
But we never set a goal as to how many we're going to give away. So this year, our goal is to give away 1,000 of those.
That's awesome.
And then we also we try to break down where our business will come from this year. And you know, we believe that we'll still have an opportunity to do some workshops eventually. So we still plan on, but we also know what the number or the value of every event that we do. And we also know what our goals would be. For example, if you wanted to set a goal, if you were a producer and you wanted to do $8 million a year, for example, the way I break down my year, if my goal was 8 million, I would say, okay, how many weeks am I going to work? And in my situation, I typically will say 48. Okay, because, you know, I'm coming down to Tampa, I'm going on vacation or whatever. So I'll divide the 8 million into 48. And I think that breaks down to about $160,000 or $170,000 a week. Well, instantly, that makes that goal easy for me, because if I'm looking, an average case is about 175,000. So I only need to find one client 48 weeks of the year, and I got my 8 million. Now that's not my goal, but that is a good perspective. That might be a way that you look at it. Then you have to back out and say, okay, how many people do I need to see? That's the question.
Right.
How many people do I need to see to get that one sale? And in some cases, it might be 2, it might be 4, it might be 6, depending on how you close. But do you have inventory that you can harvest to come up with that much business? And most people don't.
Right.
So you have to do other things. And that's where, we're looking at workshops. We still think that within a few months here in Indiana, we're going to be able to start doing some events. And I think we'll catch up on those events. We'll probably do 12 Learning Lab Social Security events, and that will equate to about an $8 million worth of business. And then we plan on doing about 8 federal events, and we still think we can do those on site. If you can't do them on site, we have a backup off-site opportunities that we're going to use.
Right.
And then we also know that's going to generate another, say, $6 million worth of business. And then through the lead system, we anticipate the ability to find about 3 clients a month out of that. That's another 6 million. So that's how we look at things, and what the overall production that we would try to find.
Beautiful. And so you're sitting down with your reps here at Megastar. I know we sit down and we talk about some of these things, but obviously you've got your internal office to talk about, and you know your numbers better than most. So, but maybe back in 2014, we were probably having a little more in-depth conversation than we do nowadays. But that's something that I feel like a lot of advisors don't do, is come and sit down with our internals over here and talk about, what it means. Like you said, I want this goal of doing X amount of production, which then means we got to reverse engineer from there. Okay, it's always great to think about, I only need to close 1 deal this week, but that's not usually how, that might be how averages work, but it's not how the reality is going to work. You might close 3 or 4 deals in 1 week, and you might have lulls of marketing that ebb and flow. What happens if you have a bad week, 1 week, like the marketing just didn't pan out that week, or the pandemic hit again, whatever. And now I've got this lull. How do I recover? What safety measures can I put in place to layer and make sure that I absolutely hit my minimum goal and my shoot for the stars goal? Maybe I'll come close to that if everything goes exactly as I planned. One of the things that I know we instill over here, for any of you folks out there that are watching that might not know this, but when you sit down with one of our internals here, be it sitting down with Rick or Kirby or Connor or anybody else on the team over here, they're going to go through basically a 3-step process, Brian. These are the things that we love to talk about now. 1, this is as simple as we can make it. 1, get better, or work harder. You want to work harder, right? So if you're not maxing out your time, if you're not working as hard as you can or want to, then let's go ahead and work a little harder, because that's the easiest way for you to double your production, is just do twice as much work, right? But maybe you're saying to me, well, Alex, I already worked as many weeks out of the year that I want to work. I work 48 weeks, like you were saying, right? That's as much as I want to work. That's as much as the missus will allow me to work, and I'm there. Well, then getting better. Right. So that means, upping your closing percentage, getting a little more effective from a marketing perspective, sitting in front of more people, being just more efficient, getting better at what it is that you do, whether that means better products, what is the holes in your selling system, analyzing those types of things. And then lastly is scaling. How do you scale? Right? Because then it's about your efficiency of, okay, well, now I'm as good a closer as I'm ever going to be. I'm working as hard as I'm going to work. And now I need to figure out a way to scale, which means maybe getting away from some of the other things. You've done this. You've done all 3 of these things already, right? Like, so you have already gotten an office staff that'll do the paperwork or the transfer of funds. You've already got an internal to help you with the security side of the business, so you're not trenched in the business or in the paperwork there, or the managing of funds there. You've already got internals to do prospecting calls for you to your current database, and tax preparers to do that sort of thing, so that the only thing that you really need to do is step in for those closing appointments or the first or second appointments and take it from there and close. So you've scaled at that point to where now you're even at the scaling point where you're hiring new advisors that can do exactly what you're doing, right? And you're just taking a sliver of that, or it all pays up to the business, right? So it's something that I feel like I had to get out into the Coffee for Closers medium, so that advisors out there knew that these options are there and that we've got internals here that can help you kind of plan those things out. Maybe not do it for you. Obviously, we can't do it for you, but can give you a paved path or a clear-cut picture on how to do that. And I know you've done that in the past and are kind of taking it on your own now to do that.
Well, everybody should talk to Megastar and your internal representative there and discuss some of the things we talked about. You know, come up with, are you a workshop person? If so, how many workshops are going to do this year? If you're a direct lead program person, get with your internal wholesaler and figure out how you're going to jump into that type of program. And you know, Alex, as you were speaking, I want to tell you a little story that really hit home for me. And it's kind of interesting because I came up with the marketing concept for somebody else, and later I recognized that I should, you know, practice what I preach. Back in the 80s, Pepsi-Cola came to me and they wanted a marketing program to incentivize their outside sales reps. Basically, their outside sales reps were the guys driving the trucks, selling product to all the stores. And I said, well, who gets the reporting? And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, who sees their weekly production reports? And they said, well, the drivers do. I said, okay. So I came up with a marketing program to send the marketing reports weekly to their spouses. Most of these people were men at the time. This is about 1986.
Right.
So weekly, we sent their reports for the week to their spouses, because the winner of this contest to drive more business and up production, the winner received a mink coat. The winner didn't receive a golf set or a rifle. The winner received a mink coat. So all the reports went back to the spouse. And it was the single most successful program that Indianapolis Pepsi ever ran.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that. And so whenever we're talking about setting goals, talk to your internal wholesaler at Megastar about your goals. But if you're married or whoever's closest to you, let them see your report.
Yeah. Yeah. It can't live only up here, these goals.
No, it cannot. You will not be successful in most cases unless you share what your goals are.
Yeah.
Sheila and I, this year was January 1st, on or about the first of the year, we sit down, we go through everything we're talking about today. Why this is fresh on my mind is because Sheila and I went through this whole thing. We laid out our entire year, and I talked to her all the time about what we accomplished or what we did. She knows where I fell short. She knows where we exceeded. But I'm on task because I feel like I'm accountable to her, or I'm accountable to you, Alex, because you and I talk about my goals. And all the agents that are watching this program, talk to somebody at Megastar and build that platform on which you want 2021 to look like.
Sure.
But also share that with somebody else that will hold you accountable.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to have people that are holding you accountable. I mean, goals are useless written down on a piece of paper in your wallet or in your purse. It needs to be something spoken publicly. I was just in a meeting with our internal recruiters, our sales position here, and said, hey, look, we're going to have a meeting this evening or this afternoon before we depart for the day, where we're going to get to know each other's goals. You know, exactly what we're looking to accomplish, because I've always been a huge advocate for that, and it sounds like you've been too, where our spouses or our business partners or our internal teams, those are the people that are going to say, hey, I know we're tired, but remember, we got to hit this goal by the end of the week, or we're going to fall off pace, or we're ahead of schedule right now. We want to keep that lead, and we might be able to hit our highest tier goal that we set for the year if we keep this pace up. Come on, bam, bam, bam. That's how every team in the history of teams has done it when we're dead tired in the middle of our training regimen. And, that this is a long road. I mean, it is for any producer out there to qualify for that trip that you wanted to get on at the end of the year. That's a long road to get there. If you wanted to get that new office space or buy a new house or whatever, these could be a long road to see, the profits we're looking to gain at the end of the year. So, yeah, man. Awesome stuff. What else?
Another thing we're implementing. Here are some things we're doing for 2021. One, I visited an office of one of our agents in Sumter, South Carolina a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they had a 65-inch monitor in their office, and they were using the Monday app. And I think most of the agents probably understand that Megastar has used this Monday app.
Yeah.
And that so impressed me, and it made me think about, okay, what are my weaknesses? And I call them my misses. Sometimes we miss opportunities just because I'm busy working on something else.
No
so
doubt.
we're incorporating that. We just we're adding a 32-inch monitor in my office where nothing but that app is going to be up all the time.
Yeah.
So 24/7, I can look over here to my left and I'll be able to see, okay, what are we on track for? What opportunities do we have?
Yep.
And Logan and Kyle in my office all have the same ability now, so we're all watching this. So that's going to keep us on track.
I when I found that Monday app, it was actually came to me through our creative department, through our website designer. He was using it on his own, along with our videographer here, just kind of using it to manage their projects. And I started to like it just because it looked pleasing to the eye, something simple as that. And when I found it to be one of the greatest lead management tools, taking the pulse tools of your entire company. So if you don't know your number, and be honest with yourself, if you don't know your numbers right now, there's no better thing you can do for yourself in 2021 than to get to know your numbers, because it is so nice to be able to wake up in the morning while I'm walking the dog and know exactly where the company stands, who's working on what that day, and how we're going to get there, right? And being notified every time on anything that I could ever want to be notified for. That's where we are right now at Megastar. We've done a full transition over December. We obviously hired a whole bunch of people, and because of that, a lot of managerial things needed to happen. Every single person watching this right now is a business owner and owes it to themselves to know every aspect of the numbers coming in on the leads they're working, prospects they're somewhat down the pipeline, where they are in the pipeline, are they close to closing, who can I go in for this week, because you might come up on a Friday and realize you haven't closed business in the last 2 weeks, and you probably are shocking. It's probably shocking to see sometimes the prospects that are right there that you just left right at the finish line and you didn't close, and you're like, wow, this person just needs a phone call, or they just need this touch, or they just needed a nudge, or I told them I was going to remind them about this and I completely forgot about that. And then you do that reminder and boom, it closed. And I know that you and a lot of other advisors out there realized that this year, where you started to nurture your old prospect books and found all this business laying at your fingertips. It's all sitting right there, and you just needed to cultivate it somehow. I know you and a lot of folks out there are going to continue to do that in 2021.
Yeah, we will. We're greatly looking forward to 2021 with all the things that we learned from 2020. We had a good year, but we had a good year because we did pivot.
Yep.
We're going to take some of those things and enhance them for this year.
Yep.
We're adding that capability to constantly be reminded of what our opportunities are and make sure nothing slips through the cracks. And we're also doing some other things. We're changing our website around. We changing our client management system, which we're excited about all of that. And that's to bring in more efficiencies in our tax service. Just a few things. Those of you people that do taxes, we're not making calls to our clients anymore to tell them their tax returns are ready. We're sending them a text.
Yeah.
They click on a link in their text, takes us to the website. Before they get to our scheduling calendar, they have a 30-second message from me. They can't get to their calendar to schedule to get their taxes until they hear me say, we're going to talk to you this year about your finances. We got a nice video recording. So we're doing some other things differently this year that everybody can do. The technology to do this stuff is simple, but we're doing some things differently just to make sure people are aware of who we are. Now, if you don't have a tax system, you don't need a scheduling system on your website, why not put a little 30 or 60 second video about the services you provide instead of showing it in print? Give them a visual and an audio of you expressing your heart and how you care about people and what you think you could do to improve their position. Yeah. Those are some things that we're doing this year and we're excited about.
Well, we're so glad to have you on here and just chat a little bit about planning a year. It's always a great concept. I love having you do this episode with us each and every year, and I'm looking forward to a great, great year. So thanks for doing this, and thanks for sharing some wisdom with everyone.
I enjoy it every year.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for watching. Hey, listen, if you haven't already, go ahead, call in today or whenever you get a free moment. Talk with your internal rep here at Megastar and get your year plan, whether that be your branding opportunities, your marketing strategy, your technology, or you want some training on some sales processes. everything under the sun is under the landscape of things that our internals can cover with you, and we're happy to do it for you. We hope every one of you have a great start to the year, and please reach out if you have any questions at all. We'll see you next time right here on Coffee for Closers.